Most people know about the wildcats of the world from books, pictures, and movies, documenting their lives in the most remote areas of the world. However, many of these areas are not large enough to sustain complete viable populations. True wild populations have an intrinsic problem when successful. They grow. When cats have enough to eat and drink and are relatively safe from humans, numbers can increase rapidly, with birth and survival of young ones outstripping natural death. The extra individuals allow expansion or recolonization of new areas, forming new populations, settling in new areas. When conditions are optimal, species can expand their range and compete with other species for the newly discovered habitat. However, our current natural world hardly has room for new colonization events, as there are no areas that just happen to be devoid of cats, ready for the taking. Humanity simply does not allow competition, especially when cats start to compete for our livestock, or in case of large cats, when humans are considered on the menu. Humans will not tolerate any challenge for dominance. All wilderness areas occupied by cats, effectively where humans allow cats to live, are already occupied, and in the areas where they're not living anymore, human forces are at work that make it very difficult for them to return. The problem can be most easily explained by the famous example of lions in Gir National Park in India. The last remaining population of Asiatic lions is confined to a small area that is surrounded by human settlements. The lions are fairly well protected, but have reached carrying capacity. The area is getting overpopulated with younger individuals that would in natural circumstances disperse away, now having nowhere else to go than back into the overcrowded Gir Reserve, having negative effects on prey, social dynamics of lions, and causing tension with the surrounding human population, with lions frequently preying on livestock. Measures of livestock protection, for example fences or deterrents against lions, will not solve the problem of overcrowding. The park has simply reached the maximum capacity in terms of prey and the number of lions it can sustain. It is therefore that most natural wilderness areas, with relatively good protection and stable environmental conditions, are almost by definition at carrying capacity, having the maximum number of individuals. When these wilderness areas have reached carrying capacity, they will by definition have the problem of local overpopulation. Some neighboring rural landscapes next to these protected wilderness areas might have some capacity to harbor a few individual cats. The level at which this can happen is highly dependent on human population density, landscape use, and mostly wild prey availability. The cats will compete with people if the local populace considers the wild prey as a valuable resource in the form of game meat. If people overhunt the prey, the lower the carrying capacity and ability of the cats to sustain themselves within this human-dominated landscape. Sometimes suitable habitat patches might be there, but there simply is not enough prey to sustain the individuals, let alone allow females to breed. The competition between cats and people is even more direct if cats start preying on livestock, especially if these are relatively free-roaming and available close to patches of wilderness. For example, when cattle has to drink from free-flowing rivers and streams. This problem becomes worse if wild prey are scarce, hunted out. If natural vegetation is still available, cats can still hide, allowing them to hunt and stalk livestock instead of wild prey. This can be problematic when such farms are next to protected areas with a source population of cats at carrying capacity. Dispersers will want to move out of such a population into the perceived available human landscape, looking for new territories. The problem becomes even worse when people equally overhunt the supposedly protected areas, making the livestock outside even more attractive, increasing desperation in cats and attracting them out of the protected areas. Conservation projects frequently focus on resolving this human-wildlife conflict by discouraging cats from taking livestock using non-lethal methods. For example, better fencing, clearing boundaries with open areas the cats are unwilling to cross, electric fencing discouraging cats even further, or encourage the use of livestock that is too formidable for the cats to attack, like buffalo. These methods discourage cats from eating livestock, but it only works if these same cats have a chance to find their food somewhere else. If there are no alternatives for these cats, it will just increase desperation, potentially increasing boldness even further, as hunger is a good motivator. In the example of Asiatic lions in Gir, they can only walk back to the Gir park, and thus one might as well put a large fence around Gir, if this is the only place they are welcome. Prevention of conflict by discouraging carnivores from predating on livestock are only useful if there is enough wild prey to sustain them, and they can be easily channeled towards alternative areas nearby where we do allow them to be. We live in a world where nature requires designation, as there are less and less areas that we as humans have simply forgotten about. All available land seems to have economic considerations. We therefore have to plan conglomerates of populations and assure that they remain connected and viable in numbers, allowing recolonization in case of disasters. This frequently requires the maintenance of connecting areas between wilderness landscapes. As humanity and its economic activity requires more and more productive agriculture, raw materials, and resources, we need to plan these networks more and more to assure their existence. For wildcats to remain wild, we need to give them enough ground so they can continue to regulate and drive their own population structures.